and welcome into the YELLA podcast. I'm your host, David West, and I have a dear friend of mine in the studio with me today. She traveled all the way from something Falls. I don't even know what is it?
Wichita Falls.
Wichita Falls.
Yes.
It's in Texas. So, Nia Lewis in the studio with me today. How are you?
Hey guys, I'm doing great.
Look great.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here with my good friend David. We've actually known each other for a minute, so this is exciting.
I know it's crazy. We know ever since 2016 and Prairie View.
Yeah.
Haven't seen you since I left, and it's crazy. I didn't even tell you I was leaving.
You didn't tell anybody you was leaving.
Didn't
We
tell
looked up
nobody.
next semester and it's like, where's David? Oh wait, he's not here.
You know me,
So-
mysterious and all. But I was telling you a few minutes ago why I felt the need to have you on. I never told you this, but you were one of the nicest souls. And I'm not, this isn't just for the pod, I promise.
What?
You're one of the nicest people that I came across at Prairie View, by far.
That
One of
is
the
so
sweetest
sweet.
souls, and you, from the time I met you, you always show love, and you
Mhm.
still continue to do,
Mhm.
even though we haven't seen each other. So that
Right.
says a lot right there.
Mhm.
Could unfollow me on everything, didn't you have to? But yeah, we met, and ever since you've checked in, and I can't emphasize enough. Once we at Prairie View, you was so kind to me, and I
Yeah.
don't forget things. That's one mantra of this podcast. I study people, I really do, and I like
Mhm.
to watch how they move, and I always watch how you move, and you always,
Oh
just
my
a
God.
good person.
Have you ever seen a black girl blush? But
I
no,
haven't.
it's actually crazy because I really felt the same way about you. David was always quiet. He didn't talk much, so it's kind of crazy that he has a podcast now. But yeah, I'm really big on auras and energies, and yours is just great. And so when I meet people like that, I like to always make sure I check in, make sure
Yeah.
they're doing good because yeah, you just gotta protect that energy. So
I
I'm
appreciate-
glad God allowed us
yeah.
to cross paths.
Wow, I appreciate the kind words. But this isn't about me. I want this to be
It
all
isn't.
about you, all about the guest, and let's just jump right into it. Let's talk more about you, where you're from, coming up. We'll talk about how you got the PV, but definitely growing up, where you're from. Talk about your journey.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Wichita Falls, Texas, and a lot of people are gonna be like, "What?" Like people always do, but
That's
yeah.
what I'm
so
thinking right now.
exactly. So Wichita Falls, Texas, is a small town. It's like 2 hours north of Dallas. So I grew up there. I was raised by my grandmother, which is actually how I got into fashion and things of that nature. She was really big into the church. So
Mhm.
every time I would go in church, I would see like the wide brim hats and the two-piece suits. And it was just always so cool to me. Like, I don't think anything matches like the energy and just the stature of a God-fearing woman. So that's something that really got me into fashion. And so, yeah. Then I went off to college, graduated in 2016, went off to college.
Congrats to you.
Thank
For
you.
sure.
So yeah, that's how I got to Prairie View.
Let me jump in really quick. Cause I didn't even introduce you. I
You
said-
didn't.
I mean, I gave you a good introduction,
It's like,
but
who is this girl?
yeah. Let me introduce her. Nia Lewis, right? A stylist, content creator, one of probably the best dressed person I've ever met. I thought I knew how to dress, and I met Nia,
And then he met me.
she kind of shut all my aspirations down. But yeah, stylist, content creator, and entrepreneur. I think that's a word that's not thrown around enough for
Mhm.
women, especially
Mhm.
entrepreneur. And I definitely think the way you manage your brand and the way you conduct yourself, I think you fit in that category of
Right.
entrepreneur, because your brand is, yeah.
Thank
I don't
you.
know if you thought about that, but I feel like we're all, especially this age, we all
Mhm.
trying to create a brand,
Right.
all trying to do our own thing, and I feel like you're like really,
Mhm.
turning into
Mhm.
something amazing, right? So,
Right.
but let's get back into it. So, the church, that's kind of where it all came to fruition.
That's where it all began,
No,
literally.
Yeah, no, that's mad dope. As someone who didn't go to church as
Mhm.
growing up, just by choice,
Mhm.
it was definitely an option. I just never never took the time to go. But that's interesting. Of all places, a church,
Yep. So my grandmother was actually a district missionary, which she's kind of over like a chain of churches in my town, like 4 or 5 churches.
That's
So
awesome.
it was church like Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then repeat.
Every day.
So yeah, I was in there. Front pew. Yeah, I was posted. So I was there a lot.
But if anything, that says a lot about your character and the
Mhm.
way you come out. Again, one of the kindest people I've had the pleasure of meeting, and it all comes full circle because you say
Mhm.
you grew up in the church, so I could understand now why you are the way
Right,
you are.
right. So yeah, I learned a lot, and you know, at first it's like you said, yours wasn't by choice. Mine necessarily wasn't a choice either.
Mm.
You know, my choice was
Yeah,
made for
yeah.
me. So it was kind of cool growing up in the church, and then going off to college. Of course, I did what I wanted to do. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? But it was really cool shifting from like knowing God because I was not forced to know him, but that's just how I grew up, and then actually learning and growing into having a relationship with him for myself. You know what I'm saying?
That's
And
beautiful.
that's something that I had to do as a young adult. Like I can't know God through my grandmother or through my papa or through my mom. You know what I'm saying? I had to really get to know him for myself, and that has been a journey in itself, but it's been a beautiful one. So that's dope.
No, that's mad dope. Again, I didn't go too often, but I would say about 3 years ago is when I started seeking faith, I
Mhm.
guess, and
Mhm.
started. I always prayed. Like me and my
Right.
mother would pray
Mhm.
every night, but I guess her not forcing me to go, I kind of had to find it myself in a
Right.
sense. So
Mhm.
I guess another reoccurring thing. I always bring up how I left Prairie View and I dropped out or whatever. But that it was during that time when I kind of set out to find him, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
started reading the Bible and started. And it definitely it had a definitely it's had a effect on who I'm becoming and who I've kind of
Mhm.
evolved to, right?
Mhm.
But I think that's dope for you to come up and from the beginning and having that relationship with God is that
Right.
important, you know.
Right. And it, like I said, it was always a foundation there, but I didn't really get into it until I learned him for myself and found the type of relationship that I wanted for him. Because even now, like I don't go to church every Sunday. You know what I'm saying? But I kind of moved away from that because I don't think that's what it's about. It's not about the building in itself. It's about the personal relationship that you have with God. And I feel like a lot of people put too much pressure on people
Mm.
to like be involved, or you just have to be in church, and that's not really what it's about. Like I would just say to anybody out there like seeking a relationship with God, don't let anybody else tell you how that relationship should be ran. You know what I'm saying? Like
100%.
just really find him for yourself and you'll be fine. But all that extra stuff or just feeling like you have to do something because this is what, you know, so and so does. No, 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 no. That's not how it works at all.
I couldn't agree with you more. Because it's so hard to always have to walk that righteous lifestyle, you
Right.
know. And
Mhm.
I think you expressed it so beautifully. More than anything, just having that relationship for yourself. You
Right.
know, it's
That's
not
really what
about
it's
going
all
every
about.
single week. You know, just
Mm-mm.
as long as you at the end of the day have that
Mhm.
relationship, I think that's all that matters.
Right.
Now
Correct.
with that, we're gonna keep going back to fashion because that's really that's all. That's gonna,
That's what we're here
yeah, yeah, you know, that's all we talking about. So in the church, so how old were you? Do you think when you found out that fashion was kind of gonna be it? Like that's the route. Like
Okay, so I was all like I said, I always seen it. I was always into it. It was always around me. The age I would probably pinpoint it to I think eighth grade.
oh really?
Eighth grade, and it's kind
Wow.
of crazy because growing up, you know, some kids are mean. You know, everybody goes through bullying and stuff like that. But I never really thought I was attractive, as hard as it may seem now. But I never really felt like attractive. So I was like, okay, Nia. I kind of had a conversation with myself. I was like, okay, if you're not gonna be cute, you're gonna know how to dress. Like that's just it.
Mm.
So literally, I would just read Vogue and just get into magazines and just that's when Facebook and MySpace, when you know, like bloggers started to
Yeah.
surface. So I would just really get into that, and I kind of just found my own lane. And
Mm.
that's really how I got into fashion. And my grandmother always thrifted, so I would go with her. But she would be looking at lamps and stuff, and I would be going through the
Yeah,
clothes.
yeah.
So that's kind of where I got into it. And then freshman year in high school, you know, my looks started coming in. I was like, wait, I was like, you kind of
The
cute. So it's
development
like,
phase, everything.
not only do
Yeah.
I know how to dress at this point, but now my looks have started coming in. So that's really when I started to discover and find myself, and it just
Word.
took off from there. To be honest.
Word. Eighth grade. That's interesting. I thought you say earlier. Really? Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Because you do it so well now. I would assume it was a common practice way back,
Right.
way back.
Well, you know, it gets to a point where your parents like stop dress, you know, stop telling you what to wear and
Very
stop
true.
dressing
Very
you.
true.
So I think that was that point where it's kind of like, okay, my grandmother isn't putting out my clothes every night before bed
For
anymore.
sure.
Like it's up to me. So
For
I think
sure.
that's really what started it.
For sure. And you brought up bullying. That's interesting. Because I was thinking about this last night. So, because for me, I feel like I think for me, my love for fashion came really early,
Mhm.
like second second grade early, like because I
Right.
always had shoe game. You know what I'm saying? I always had a little style
Mhm.
on me, but we had uniforms, right? And this is what I was
Right.
thinking about last night. It was because I looking back. I hated uniforms because I couldn't express myself in the way I wanted to express
They
myself.
suck.
I don't know. Did you have to wear uniforms?
I wore uniforms for 1 year and I almost off myself. So that
Jeez.
happened.
Yeah. But for me, yeah, we had to wear uniforms, and I understand why.
Right.
It goes back to it ties into bullying, right?
It
And
does.
no one's ever told me this directly, but I feel like they enforced the uniform. I would assume they enforced the uniform, so we all dressed in the same.
Right.
Like, what you gonna bully me for? My
Right.
shirt too big or something? Like, what could you possibly say to me for wearing the same clothes? So I
Exactly.
think that's why. So looking back on it, I definitely can't. I like what a uniform does, but at the same time, this is where the dissonance comes in. I feel like it limits your expression,
It
right?
stifles it, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. And I didn't get out of. You said you had to wear uniform for 1 year.
For 1 year.
I had to wear uniforms till I was in the 6th, 7th grade.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Very stifled my expression, right?
Mhm.
But we always had shoe game, you know.
Exactly.
We was able to.
But see, that's what I'm saying. It kind of contradicts itself because it's like, okay, everybody wears the same thing, but it's like somebody got on Jordans and somebody have on like Walmart shoes, and you get ripped for
100%.
that. So it's
Yeah.
like you really can't win.
Needless to say, that bullies are evil.
They are.
That's the point we're
are.
getting at. Bullies
Mhm.
are evil. But no. So grew up in. So how far is you said?
Wichita
How far is
Falls
that from Houston?
from Houston, it's about 7 hours, 6.5 hours, something like that.
Okay, so 8th grade. I want to get back to that. 8th
Okay.
grade, it's kind of where you were able to. That's when you started to find yourself, and this is basically the lane you wanted to be in, right?
That's where it all began.
That's where it all began.
Yeah.
So from there, what came first? Because you do a lot of things, right? We got the modeling, the styling aspect of it. Which domain came first for you?
I would say modeling first. And I think people just automatically assume that I modeled because I took good pictures and I dressed well. So I kind of just went with it. I was like, okay, I can do that. Like, I can model. But it took me, we were actually in a fashion show together freshman year.
Was that the first time you were ever?
That was the first time
That's
I ever
shocking
modeled.
to me.
I know.
I mean,
that was the very first time I ever
yeah.
modeled.
It shouldn't be hard to believe it was my first time, but
It was, but you did great.
I did
That was
my-
an awesome fashion show.
I did
It was
my
an
part,
awesome production.
I did
Shout
my
out to
part.
Tyreek.
for sure.
So people just automatically assume that I modeled. So I think freshman year coming into PV was the first time people actually hit me up. Hey, do you want to model? And it's like this whole new realm. Cause like I said, Wichita Falls is a small town, so people don't really do all of like creative wise. It's not that big of a platform for anybody. So coming to college freshman year was my first time that somebody would actually like reach out to me and be like, hey, you want to model this? You want to? I'm like, model? Yeah, why not? You know what I'm saying? I look good. Why not? But it took me about the end of freshman year to realize that just wasn't for me. Modeling just wasn't my niche. Because I feel like it takes a certain, like anybody can get in front of a camera and pose, but it's so much more to it. It's actually like an art, and I just feel way more comfortable behind the camera than I do in front of the camera. So after that, I was like, okay, yeah, modeling just isn't for me necessarily.
I want to bounce around really quick. So
Okay.
coming from a small town to a small town in Prairie View, was that? Did you want to go to Prairie View? Was that the ideal?
Okay,
spot?
coming to PV, I was actually being a kiss up to my mom because my mom was an alumni.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I'm basically one of her last kids to go to college. I was like, nobody else went to PV, I'll go. So that's basically how that went. So yeah.
Okay. So, because my story is a little. Well, it's about this. Well, for me, PV was the only school I can get into. Yeah, we was bad to say the least in high school. From elementary school to high school, I was really I was kind of asshole. Really.
Okay.
I wasn't bullying. We don't condone bullying. I wasn't bullying
that's
nobody,
cool.
but I was class clown. Making everybody laugh and. Just wasn't doing the right things and
Yeah.
didn't take grades serious. And by
No.
that time, it was too late. Kind of got stuck there, So
Okay, so now that I know this is a safe space,
100%.
same. Okay. Because same. No, it's not that I kind of just glided through high school. Like school was never my my team. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But I got good grades because I'm just, like it's just easy. It's like whatever school. But
Mm.
I never really paid attention to it. So when we came up to like applying for colleges, I really didn't even put that much thought into it.
Same.
I looked at UNT because they had an actual fashion program.
Okay.
And then I looked at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in LA, but my mom was just like, "That's not happening."
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So you coming into college, you were already thinking about fashion
Yeah.
programs and stuff. That's
That's all I
interesting
feel
to
like
me.
I've ever been good at. Like if it's not
That's
fashion,
interesting.
I'm not sure what it. I can't imagine
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
doing anything
For
else.
me, I didn't figure it out till I got to PV because
Really?
I didn't get introduced. Like I said, always I was always stifled by wearing uniforms, so I couldn't really find my love for fashion till like
Right.
the 7th, 8th grade, whatever. But once I found it, it kind of took off. But that's interesting for you because I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. No, that's crazy though because you say you go to you look you're looking at these schools, right? And how did why I'm blanking.
It's good. You were just saying that like it's crazy that I knew that I wanted to do something in fashion prior to.
Thank you. Yeah. So, because again, for me, it took so long to figure that stuff out.
Right.
But you were already locked in. Like this is where I'm gonna jump in.
I knew it. But at the same time, I had people, aka family, telling me that like it's not really a smart idea to get a major in fashion. It's gonna be really hard to, get a job in that field. So that's when I started looking at PV, and I was like, well, business. Like I'm very business savvy. I always have been. So I was like, okay, like whatever. I'll just do business, and I'll go to PV because my mom went there. And are y'all happy now? Type shit. You know what I'm saying? That type thing. Like,
I got you.
yeah. So that's how that went. But yeah, like I said, nothing has ever piqued my interest like fashion does. Like I said, school is like, it's school. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. I think for me, why it took me so long, I was bad at art. That's why I kept failing art as a kid. So I knew,
Really?
yeah, you wasn't feeling art. I was
No, like draw outside the lines. What's the fail?
Hey, we was all outside the lines. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I think that's what, cause I could always see myself designing clothes, cause
Right.
that's a whole different.
That's a whole nother realm.
That's a whole nother realm. I always thought about it, but man, we couldn't even cut the fabrics correctly. Like I wasn't, it wouldn't have worked out right.
Yeah.
So I think that has something to do with why it took me so long too. So I guess fast forwarding, we get to PV.
We get to PV.
Again, you say first show. That was the first show. Right.
That was right, correct.
Right. And
that was my
back,
first show ever.
looking back on it, because I know you said now you've kind of figured out modeling not so much for you. But looking back at that show specifically, what do you remember about it? And just any takeaways, anything you remember about it?
That show
it was dope. It was mad fun.
awesome. That show was
fun.
so awesome. It was so much fun. What's crazy is like during the practices, I would have never imagined that it would have turned out the way it did.
Bro, that was a boot camp.
That was a boot camp.
We had practices every week on the hour, like it was crazy.
And all of us was talking shit. We was like, man, this is not gonna be this is not even going, this whole not even gonna pop. Like I was talking shit just because I never even imagined it would even, it just didn't seem like real. Like we doing all this stuff, like how is it going to come together?
100%.
But when it came together, it was it was so much fun too.
Yeah.
And I met so many dope people like you. Just that I honestly, because I didn't join any organizations because I always felt like I was just like way too cool for school. So organizations were just never my thing. So that was really the only that was my only way of actually like going out and meeting people. But I'm so glad I did because I met so many cool, amazing people.
And on top of all that was our freshman year. So we're already, like they say, a fish in a big pond. Or
right.
whatever. So we already getting immersed with all these different things. And we're trying to find ourselves and find people. Like I said, I knew a couple cats that were at the school, but you leave your friends, you want to make a name for yourself outside of it. And I think that's where that fashion show for me, that's kind of where it came to fruition for me. You know.
And what's crazy is none of my like the circle that I was hanging out with at the time, none of them were in the fashion show. Like I remember I asked them, "Hey y'all, come to like tryouts with me," and it's like, "No, girl, like we don't do that." So I was like, "I'm gonna do it." You know what I'm saying? Because this is something that like interests me. So I really had to learn how to step away from the crowd and just really do what made me happy, which is kind of hard going first to college. Going into college, it's like once you meet people, you like, okay, I'm gonna just stick with them. It's really hard to like peel away from that. But I'm extremely glad.
But let me tell you, that's why meeting you was so important. That's why I introduced you the way I introduced you, because again, you coming into a new school, a whole lot of people, they look like you, but you at the end of the day, you gotta see who that person is and meet them. And again, I feel like really early on, you came out of nowhere. Like I think we might have had a few practices in, but you came out of nowhere and you really started showing love and you was really kind to me. And again, that's so hard to do because you didn't know me, you didn't know who I was. But I think that's why our relationship is so good, because I definitely appreciate that. So you say modeling isn't that domain for you.
Nope. I'm just not that type of girl. Like
I look at it. I haven't done a fashion show in about 3 years, so maybe
Right. But see, fashion is just so amazing because there's so many parts to it. It's so many parts and bits, and it's like you could be in front of the camera, but I feel like it's just so much more action behind the camera. It's like I like the hustle and the bustle of because I've been to a fashion show after that, but I was like styling in the back, and I had equally as much fun. I just learned that I just prefer being behind the camera than I do being in front of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I was about to ask you, so at this point, where do you find the most solace? Like, is it styling? Is it content creating? Is it
where do I find the most what?
The most happiness.
I don't know. It's just also amazing. But I feel like styling is really I like seeing people happy. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a jokester. I like making people smile. I like making people feel comfortable. So the fact that I can do that through clothes, you know what I'm saying? I could just give that gift to somebody in my own way. That's top tier. You know what I'm saying? Content creating is fun because again, it's another way of expressing myself and just, I have so many ideas. So it's just, it's always fun seeing them come to light and seeing my little ideas become really big ones and just seeing the finished product. But I think styling is really, it just makes me so happy to see something that I put together make somebody else so happy and comfortable and beautiful.
Yeah, and seeing you, it's so crazy. I would still think you model because the way you carry yourself. I'm giving you a lot of praise.
You are.
Showing a lot of love. We show love on this podcast. You know.
I don't object.
But I watch, I follow you on Instagram. I watch your posts and I watch you post your outfits and everything, and they're always on point. I would think you're still, styling, but I mean, I would think you're modeling. I would really think, but.
No, sorry. Nia the model no longer lives here.
That part of my life is over.
That chapter is done. But like I said, I had so much fun with it. But it's just like an art that you should take serious. And it's a lot of skill that goes behind it as well. And I just figured that just wasn't for me.
100%. So I saw a tweet from yours.
You saw a tweet?
I saw a tweet.
What did the tweet say?
It was about Miss Black Texas. I don't know what that is, so I kind of want to dive into what exactly that is before we talk about your role in it. So what is Miss Black Texas?
Okay, so Miss Black Texas is a pageant in the state of Texas. Okay. So several women come in to compete for a crown and the title Miss Black Texas. And it's MS. It's MS Black Texas. It's a pageant, and I am currently styling the current Miss Black Texas 2020, which is so exciting. It's so exciting. It's so lit. This is just an amazing opportunity, and it's crazy just seeing because when I first started styling, I was just so lost. I was like, oh my God, how do I do this? And it's really hard because it's like nobody tells you what to do. So I just really got in the books and just really started doing some research of my own. And I remember something that always stuck with me, and it was start introducing yourself the way you want to be addressed. So before anybody else called me a stylist, I had to call myself a stylist. You know what I'm saying? Just showing up as the woman that you want to be. And so once I started doing that, the blessings started pouring in. And this is just one of many, which I'm super excited about. And
I'm excited for you.
Thank you so much.
So what's run me through the timeline. So when does the pageant, how do you Do you meet the
Do I meet? Okay, so I met Miss Black Texas.
Okay.
But due to Miss Rona, COVID-19, they weren't actually able to have the actual pageant.
Okay.
But she still got crowned. So now the next step is competing for Miss USA in a pageant. So so they have Miss Texas, Miss I don't know Michigan, Miss Louisiana.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So they all come together, and that's in April. They'll be competing for the final crown,
Okay.
which is Miss USA. So yeah, well, Miss Black USA. So right now we're just my job with her is just styling her for like press conferences, business meetings, you know, everything going on with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter at the current moment. Dressing her for just speeches that she's been giving out. We're actually doing a speech it's called Strolling for Peace, and it's in Wichita Falls, Texas this weekend. So she'll be speaking at that as well.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's just my job. It's just little jobs right now, but the big event is in April. So that's exciting. And that's like a worldwide pageant. So this
Okay,
is
that's the pageant.
yeah, this is definitely one of the biggest styling jobs that I've gotten thus far. You know what I'm saying? So it's a bit much. But I'm excited and I'm well prepared.
You deserve it.
Thank you.
First and foremost.
Thank you so much.
We didn't even talk about you just graduated. Like
Not quite.
Oh no. Oh okay.
No,
okay,
I don't
okay.
graduate until December, but basically, yeah, you're
You're just
sitting
about outta
amongst a PV graduate.
Well, I couldn't be more than happy for you.
Thank you so much.
I have one more year left at UT.
I have to admit, I'm ready to get the fuck, definitely. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
I understand.
Yeah, but you know, PV is just it's like this big, and people think that everything that's going on is this big, but it's like, y'all gotta remember, it's a whole world out there. Like, it's way more than just PV, but I think people get really, really caught up in it. You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead.
But yeah, no, that's all I was saying. Like, just realize that there's a lot more out there.
Looking back on it, for me, one of the things I think I appreciated most about PV, the creatives, right? And there's a lot of I correlate that to Houston especially, because I think if most people I know that are creative are creating a brand or doing something within the realm of fashion, especially they're from Houston, and that's so dope to me. And I feel like PV, you got your Houston, Dallas, Central Texas areas, and they come all together into one little space. And I don't know, again, the most creative people I've ever come across, like yourself, were at PV. So I mean, if there's anything I miss about the experience and miss from my time there, it was definitely that.
Yeah, and I think what's cool about PV is like it's a small community. So if you do see somebody that you like or are creative that you really want to just like network with and get close to, it's not hard. Literally, all you have to do is reach out and touch them. Like, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just so easy. So yeah, I think PV taught me a lot about. PV taught me almost everything I know. But one thing is definitely how to network and how to really go across with your peers, because a lot of times what we do is we try to, when we start doing something creative, we try to go up, like reach up and like link with those type of people, when really if you just reach out to the people next to you and then y'all go up together. Now, you can't take everybody with you, but just like start with your peers, you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So yeah,
For sure. That was beautiful.
thank you.
I can't think of anything else I want to touch on necessarily.
Okay, well, I have a question for you, Mr.
Let's get it.
Podcast question asker. Okay, so you told me the name of your podcast was YELLA.
Yes, I do want to.
So
the first person to ask, I appreciate it.
I am really interested in the name behind that and the origin behind that.
For sure. So for me, again, we follow each other on social. I have that yellow. You've seen yellow on some form of profile, and for me, I've always been, well, not always. The past few years, I've kind of been enamored with the color yellow. I didn't know why initially, but I started brainstorming this podcast, started thinking about names and stuff, and what did that yellow mean to me? And for me, it's almost like a light for me, like, because I don't know, my life I'd say about 2-3 years ago, my life started transitioning, and I couldn't find evolving, but I finally started to see it. So I feel like that yellow for me, it kind of represents the evolvement and something I was waiting for, and I'm starting to see it in fruition. Like, I would have never thought to have a podcast. I would have never thought to do any major media, whether that's whatever.
Mhm.
And that's kind of when it all started to play in strips. That's where the color yellow comes from.
Mhm.
Hi, Yella. Obviously a lot of history behind that word.
Yeah,
A
that's
lot
how
of
I was.
history.
Yeah,
A lot of
definitely.
history. Controversial.
Mhm.
But for me, it's not necessarily about retracting that history at all. But
Mhm.
maybe, if anything, maybe I could shine light with this podcast, and maybe I could sort of change the narrative behind it.
Right.
You know, I'm not trying to absolve anything that has that connotation of that word or that
Mhm.
or that saying rather. But you know, hopefully with this podcast, I could shine light, especially in dark times like this, and hopefully I can we can't change the meaning of the word, but hopefully we could, you know.
Right. Give it a
That's
new
kind of
perspective. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But yeah, that's something that really caught my attention. That's dope. That's really cool.
It's okay. It's something. It's
It's
something.
cool. It's dope. And like I said, I would have never thought like you said, you would have never thought. I would have not thought. Hell, nobody would have never thought. David would have a podcast. But here we are.
I know it's
Here I
wild.
am.
On the podcast.
Exactly.
The first woman on the podcast. I'm so happy to have
I am so honored, and whoever sits in the seat after me is going to have some really big shoes to fill.
you.
I would just like to say that.
Well, you heard it here first. Nia Lewis, I can't thank you enough for being there.
Thank you so much.
I always forget to give people socials. Any Twitter, Instagram, any.
Yes,
Where can they find you?
my Twitter and Instagram is the same. It's in Lou Styles, and I'm really glad I get the chance to say that out loud because people be like in Louis, and they just make up stuff. It's like
Yeah.
honestly NLEW and then Styles. But yeah, my name is Nia Lewis. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at in Lou Styles, and yeah, can't wait to see you on my timeline.
For sure. Happy to have you.
Thank you so much. It's great being here. Thank you so much again. And yeah, this was awesome.
For sure. Hi, Yella Podcast. I'm David West. We out.